This gentleman was the first ever to bring a Zim Hip Hop Summit to our nation, which brought about various people within the industry of hip hop. And guess what? Not just hip hop, but the whole music industry came in and supported, gave points and tips on how to make it better. He's been running a dance trust for the past 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. And you can try to imagine how it's possible in what we are trying to term a meltdown of an economy. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
You know what, let's just get straight into it. Tell us about the early years of Plot Mhako, even before Jibilika.
Well, Plot Mhako grew up between two places. You know, half of the time of my childhood I was in the village in Shamva, and then half of the time I was in Glenview. So I was constantly shuttled between the two places until the time that I started going to school, where I would be in Harare most of the time, and then I'd go to the village during the school holidays. Mm-hmm. And growing up, I mean, much of my influence was around arts and culture and music.
All right.
Not that I was coming from a musical family, but just the people around me, they loved so much music and arts, to the extent that that started to inform my interest and my passion towards arts and culture. And over the years, I grew an interest towards, you know, what really goes on when the radio is playing, what goes on when the TV is playing, what's behind, who's behind, where's that voice coming from, where are the visuals coming from. And I think that enthusiasm and sort of curiosity drove my interest into starting to learn more about the arts and culture. And yeah, today I'm working in that sector almost each and every time.
So we can safely say that if this was 3 years ago,
yeah,
you probably wouldn't have started a dance trust. You'd have been a dancehall king, eh?
Possibly, maybe I could have been a DJ. I always wanted to be a dancehall DJ.
Really?
Because I was following a lot of dancehall clashes.
Okay.
And trying to imitate, you know, people speaking in patois. So I was struggling with that because I grew up very shy. I was not talking that much. And becoming an MC was always, you know, a challenge. But because I could not become an MC, I took that as my title. That became my nickname, you know. In my childhood, I was known as MC Plot. Because I always thought, you know, I want to be a master of ceremony. I want to be in charge of those events. I want to be there, you know, and creating, you know, these events and running the show. Yeah.
And Jibilika this year, 2017, is exactly 10 years old.
Yes.
Which more or less means that you started it at the age of 25?
Yeah, just before I turned 25, when I was 24. That's when I started Jibilika.
So did you come straight from, whether it was college or school, into Jibilika, or you had a previous employment background?
Well, my first employment is what I would regard as my first graduation or my first initiation into arts. That was at the Harare International Festival of the Arts in 1999 when I was in Form 4. I volunteered for the festival. And the experience of being part of a first of its kind festival happening in Zimbabwe that was international. There'd never been such a festival before. I think that blew my mind. It sort of exposed me to a lot of imagination and possibilities around the arts and culture. And the 6 days of the festival transformed my life. After which I completed my high school, I worked for TM Supermarkets in the takeaway department. And working there, it also, I think somehow it was somehow predestined. I'm starting to believe, because working there, the supermarket was adjacent to where by then Galaxy or Shamiso Studios were located. And you know, Delano Makalima, by then he was the king, you know. It was the era of urban groups when urban groups was really popping up. So most of the artists were recording at Galaxy or Shamiso Studios. And during their break sessions, they would come to the supermarket where I was working, and they would want to buy food. And when they were buying food, I was always the first one to jump in to save them, because I could recognize them. That's Rocky, that's Pauline. And that also started a bit of the the relationship. And a few years later, I started working for No, just a few months later, I started working for Fidelity Printers, which is a subsidiary of the Reserve Bank. I worked there for 5 years until the last day that I said, I'm leaving this place. I'm going to start Jibilika.
Wow.
But I started Jibilika whilst I was still there. And I think about 7 months down the line, I threw in the towel and I said, I'm going to pursue this as my full-time career and passion.
It's always very crucial to be under someone's wing. Mm-hmm. We're always taught, well, actually our educational system has taught us to be employed. Mm-hmm. But I like when you said that you threw in the towel. Mm-hmm. What are the 3 things that you would say the employment phase made for Jibilika as a vision?
Well, I think the 3 things that I would say my employment phase made for Jibilika were, firstly, is the integrity. Just learning how to do business and applying ethics. And secondly, accountability. And just the professional way of doing business, which I still find lacking still to date. And that has for years been my leverage in the arts scene, to say, look, I've been a subordinate for some years. I've managed to work under procedure manuals and certain strict conditions that I had to adhere to. And still innovating, but not really much of doing things of my own. So I think those years really created a good foundation for me that for years I've used now to create an enterprise.
I think one of the most lacking elements for any entrepreneur in this age, of course, is the age of millennials. Yes. So we're said to be very redundant to protocol and structures and systems. What would you say to that young person fresh out of college who wants to start their own, whether it's a trust, maybe it's a business, might not be just social enterprise, it could be a profit making. What would you tell them to do within the first 5 years of their life before they step into their vision?
Well, the first thing that I would say is they have to read widely. Read a lot, like towards the stuff that you want to pursue, whatever career you want to pursue. Just be knowledgeable. I think with knowledge, you are powerful. So that knowledge alone can empower you, it can empower your creativity, it can even empower your conscience and your drive towards a specific goal. And apart from just reading widely, interact with the like-minded people that you would want to identify with. Because at times also the company that we keep, has a great bearing on us. So that's when mentorship comes in. I really didn't manage to get a chance of, getting mentored in the area of arts, but my former boss at Fidelity, he was always a bit hard on me, but there was something that he was trying to teach me. And he gave me one book which somehow, changed my mindset. He gave me a book by Robert Kiyosaki. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, And after that, I had to look for Retire Rich.
Wow.
And, somehow I could relate some of the things from the book to my real situation. And that empowered my mindset.
Okay.
So I think those are some of the things that I would urge anyone who wants to venture into any industry, fresh from college. But it's also good that you volunteer.
Okay.
Just servant leadership. Get into the area that you're interested in. Do it for free. Don't do it for money first.
Okay.
And that's how we get to learn. Start from the ground, from the bottom. I volunteered. I worked for HIFA. Yes, they paid us an allowance, but that experience alone, I managed to learn a lot of things.
I like the element that you've said of mentorship. Mm-hmm. Now, knowing the background of Jibilika,
yes,
you've made quite a name, not just within arts, but even corporates. You find a lot of companies come on board to your festivals, they sponsor. I think it was from 2012, if I'm not wrong. That was the very first time that the US Embassy funded one of the festivals.
Yes.
And you've been running a Step Up to HIV with PEPFAR.
Yes.
You've been imported by Germany because of your skill of the arts to actually focus on developing Zim, not just from within, but even outside, and creating strategic partnerships. What would you say is a differentiating factor of Jibilika to other organizations locally?
I think what differentiates Jibilika from any other organization locally is Jibilika is run on youth energy.
Okay.
Jibilika is not a conventional institution. It's an organization that sort of responds to the needs and the demands of the current young person. So it is informed by a popular youth culture that we use as a vehicle and as a tool to engage and empower young people.
Okay.
So we simply derive our strategy and our work tool from what appeals to young people, a language that young people can understand. So Jibilika is defined by young people, their dreams and aspirations, and that differentiates it from any other organization, because most organizations have a fixed way of doing things, but Jibilika is quite fluid and flexible, and is in touch with the ideals and the thoughts of the young person.
You've recently celebrated your 10th year anniversary as Jibilika.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your low points. What have been some of your most catastrophic failures, and how did you manage to just step out of them and keep going?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges that we faced was in 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the lowest moment. It almost broke my spirit. In that year, I remember we're doing the African Championships of the Battle of the Year, and apparently things didn't really go well. We had teams getting deported from Zimbabwe. We also had, the winning team, Zimbabwe, failing to travel to France, missing our flights. And I think that was one of the biggest challenges because the factors that contributed to that were both administrative and also just the climate and other things, but we had to take the responsibility and say, no, we made blunders, we made failures, and we need to correct and start rethinking. And this is the first year that we had started to really secure good funding for our projects. A lot of organizations, NGOs, had come on board to say, we support the vision, we support what you guys are doing. And we lost it to zero. And the next year was more of a defining moment for us, whether we're going to continue or whether we're going to give up.
I like you said that it's only 2017 that funding has actually started coming through. I'm sure the audience would want to know. We have entrepreneurs and those that are seasoned, starting, as well as, midway. They would like to know, how exactly do you start a vision with no money? How did Jibilika do it?
Well, we really didn't start with no money.
Okay.
Maybe in terms of like hard cash, yes, there wasn't. But we had human capital. We had people that came to support the vision, that bought into the vision initially. And for me, I regard that as capital. It's not necessarily money, but also the ideas and the vision that we have can actually be capital in its form. If it's viable, if it's sustainable in any way, and if it's interesting to any potential collaborator, that is also capital. But with the first year, since I was working, I'd managed to raise a bit of funds. So I'd started at 23, I'd started building a house. And 2 years later, I decided to dispose that house. It was half built. And that's mainly the money that I used to pay for the first expenses for the first Jibilika Festival in 2007. Yeah. But over the years, things changed, because if you remember from 2007, no matter how much money you'd made, we were getting into a very economic turmoil situation. 2008 was the worst. But we managed to survive and ride the tide. And I think 2008 sharpened our sword. Our resolute and our drive to fight on was sort of re-energized. We would just look back and said, we managed to make it through 2008, so we can make it another time.
Being a bit more specific, I like this, the capital question, because I think it's a struggle that many young people have fresh out of college. You've got a big dream, but you don't have money.
Yeah.
You really want to start it because there's no employment. Half of the time, no one actually sees the prospect of your vision.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who's in that scenario in terms of building up until they get to financeability of their vision?
I think it comes back to the aspect of creating confidence.
Okay.
The community around you has to start believing in you. And so it boils down to you have a big vision, but start small, but thinking big. You're already seeing where you're going, but you start it small and grow the confidence within your own community, within your own space and sphere of influence. Those are the people that will come to your support first, your family, your friends, and just the community around you. So, and they can be your capital. If you don't have a car and you need to be mobile, they can be a friend with a car. If you don't have space to use, and then there's somebody who has a garage or has got space that you can actually make use of.
Yeah.
If you don't have stationery, there's someone who says, oh, look, I've got some stationery that is printed on one side. Can you use it? And you can print on the other side and still use it. So I think it's just a matter of being innovative and creative around the resources that we have and not looking beyond, but just looking from within and start to build it from the ground up.
And just out of interest,
Yes.
if you had an opportunity to start over again, everything, let's assume this is not 10 years, it's at 1 year. If you had that opportunity to change your career, would you change it, and what would it be?
Well, after Jibilika reached 10 years in March, I made a new start. I stepped down as the director for Jibilika, and young people that have been mentored and raised by the project from inception took over the reins as the directors. So I'm there basically as an advisor and helping out with innovation projects. But I've started a new path. I just started the Zimbabwe Hip Hop Summit. And the goal is much bigger than just the conference. Okay. So this is more like a new start. But still, Jibilika has been the platform that sort of launched me to create other avenues. Also part of Kwenda Productions. Graphic designing, I'm writing, and
the plot thickens.
The plot thickens,
Okay.
yeah. So the plot keeps thickening. Yes. But if I were to switch careers, I think I would still go back to the same lane. Yeah.
Okay. One would actually think that perhaps you would have taken the journalist role because you did a course on journalism.
Yeah, I did journalism, I did mass communication at Kosa. And I still write. I do write for a couple of publications. I write for Zimbabwe, I write for Calabash, for Pamshana. And I'm starting to contribute also on some international journals that are interested in knowing about the arts and culture in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So with my footprint in the arts and culture and the music scene in Zimbabwe, I've started to get, media houses wanting to hear from me the story about Zimbabwe when it comes to arts and culture. So, yeah, journalism, definitely. I would love one day to even have a media house or an advertising agency. Hoping also that the environment will be also enabling.
Okay.
Yes.
10 years, and then you decide to step down, as you said.
Yes.
Which is a bit rare within a vision. Many people think that because it's your vision, once you step out of it, it becomes crippled.
Yeah.
How did you manage to transfer the passion, the zeal, confidence, even contacts? Because I feel that many people, if they had that capacity, their businesses would grow.
I think it was not by coincidence that I stepped down. It was something that I thought of, I think, at the time when I reached like 5 years. I said, one day I have to step down. A young person has to take the reins because the organization has outgrown me. It's now an institution, it's now a brand. So whether I'm there or not, the organization will continue to live on because it has created a legacy. It has a foundation that is deep-rooted. And the roots are not necessarily around me, but the roots are around the work and the young people that I work with. And it's like a school. Each year there's always a stream of Form 1s. Yeah. And still next year there's another stream, and then there's also the ones that are completing. But the school never closes. Why? Because there are systems. So we created systems that can sustain the organization, that enables whoever takes over to simply come in, fit in, and also chart their own way. Because the new director shares their own energy, and she's pushing Jibilika towards a certain direction that is slightly different from the one that I had. I feel that I'd sort of exhausted. I could still continue to be director, but there was need for new blood to run. And my strong belief is that a leadership has to revolve. And through the Mandela Washington Fellowship Program, YALI, which I'm a fellow, pretty much, much of the leadership skills that we learned would sort of change your mindset from just thinking around yourself, but looking at the possibility for somebody else and other people to even do better than you.
One thing I've observed with a lot of businesses, I'll call Jibilika business just for the appreciation of our audience as well, is that there's a lot of duplicity of vision and extreme lack of innovation. And you find innovation is mission critical. So what would you say are the major things that Jibilika does to be innovative and to stay ahead?
I think what Jibilika does is to be on its toes. I mean, always the institution is running on pop culture and youth energy. So this is something that informs the global trends. And you find, for example, with hip-hop culture, it's a culture that transcends, a lot of barriers. And globally, it's a culture that speaks to young people, not only musically, but also culturally. They dress hip-hop, they talk hip-hop, they think hip-hop. But we as Jibilika, we said, look what, there's also some negative connotations around this culture. But deep inside, there are also some beautiful stuff that we can tap into. And we can also use it in a cleaner way to speak to the ideals and thoughts of young people. So innovation is one of our key goals and our key engines. Innovation is what keeps Jibilika running, because all our projects are social innovation initiatives. We innovate around the needs of the young people. And our model is quite interesting and unique in the sense that it's not only donor related and donor reliant. We can also we've shown that we are able to run initiatives even without donor funds because of just how we've structured it. To say, look, any institution, any organization, any church, any politician, anyone wants numbers. And this is what Jibilika works towards. We have a model that appeals to numbers, and these are the numbers that are needed by companies. So if a company needs to reach out to a mass market of young people, we are the bridge between, and we have a vehicle that can communicate. So that has created value for institutions of that nature that would want to reach out to that community, be it a civic organization that wants to speak about maybe sexual health and reproductive health. They would want to ride on Jibilika and reach their intended audience. The same with a company that wants to market a new banking package that is targeting young people. They would want to even ride on Jibilika. So with our strategic positioning, that has created the monetary value that we want. So in turn, we exchange our potential and our ability for money. Okay. And that's the business part. And this is what sustains Jibilika. So whilst we're doing community work which makes us connected to a lot of young people, we then in turn say, look, we have young people that have skills that you can in turn use to reach out to even the multitudes. So there are layers of young people being empowered, from those that are involved as practitioners, as artists, to those that are recipients of the program.
So Jibilika as a social enterprise, straddling between making a profit and as well bringing about social change.
Yes.
In our current situation, our social situation in Zimbabwe, what's the one major problem that we have or challenge as a country that keeps you awake at night and makes you desire to solve it with your vehicle as Jibilika?
I think it's the lack of self-belief amongst the generation, amongst young people. For me, that alone keeps me awake. Just to think that we have a generation that is growing without believing in themselves, believing that they can make it, believing that the possibility to have a better life and do things better lies in themselves. That whatever solution that they want is not outside, but it's within. It's amongst us. And that the biggest challenge that we are facing as a people is a cultural deficit, a cultural deficiency. It's not just the lack in poverty, no, I think it's cultural. To the extent that I believe that we're a country that needs total rehabilitation culturally. Because now no one wants to do things in a legit way, everybody wants to cut corners.
Yeah.
The level of wanting to benefit and reap the next person and not thinking about your own society is shocking. You know, we throw a litter on the ground hoping somebody is going to pick it, or not caring what's going to happen, right? We even when we're driving, we don't care about the next person, right? This is not necessarily to define the whole Zimbabwe, no, but I'm saying majority. You have started to get into that bad culture. So I think what defines, for example, the Americans is that American dream. It's a cultural thing. They're represented on TV, on mass media by one common vision, right? But when you dig deep, you find they have a lot of differences, a lot of ethnic, cultural, racial differences. But ultimately, when you see the American brand is represented one, the South African brand stands as one. And I think this is where we need to get to as Zimbabweans. And this is something that keeps me awake every night to say, we have to do it. So the thought of, oh, we've got a lot of hip-hop artists in Zimbabwe that are failing to break through, even locally, not international, like within. But every day they're recording music and they're failing to really do something meaningful and create a career out of it. Gave me sleepless nights to the point that I said, I want to do the first Zimbabwe Hip Hop Summit.
You mentioned a bit earlier that mentorship was your anchor point when you began. I like a certain quote that says that there are so many mistakes that a person can make in life, but you don't have enough lifetime to make them, you know. And that's one thing that MentorUS tries to do with these kind of programs, to get the audience in touch with people who are thriving within their institutions. What would you, as last piece of advice to a young person who's out there, who's vigorous and passionate about starting their vision, what last piece of advice would you like to give to our audience?
Well, what I would like to say to every young person and the audience is basically that whatever that you want, keep desiring it, stay hungry. You know, as long as you are hungry and not easily self-content, that will keep you motivated and working hard towards your goal. And be humble. You know, when you're humble, you can learn. You can always take advice. And hard work pays off. Always work hard. And believe in yourself, believe in your dream. I've been running an organization that has been promoting dance in the country, but I've never danced. I don't dance at all. So I think that alone speaks of the possibility that we have if we believe in what we want.
Thank you so much, Mr. Plot Mhako, for
Thank you,
joining
Mr.
us on
Jibilika.
Mentor Us.
It's been a pleasure.
We really appreciate your time
Thank
and
you, sir.
the nuggets that you've dropped here. I believe they are going to help us and propel our vision, even as mentors, because at times we feel stifled by whether it's financial constraints, whether it's just mentorship availability or mentors and all that. But I think what you've basically said has changed our mindsets. So we really appreciate you.
It means a lot.
And we hope that we can stay in touch with you. Invite us, you know. We want to come to Germany as mentors.
Yeah.
We want to, you know.
Definitely invite you. But you know what, I might be in Germany, but still I'm still grounded. I'm still rooted. My heart is here.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us again on Mentor Us. It's been an exciting pleasure interviewing one of the biggest names in the arts industry. We hope that you'll be able to join us again as we go through the highs and the lows of entrepreneurship, exposing certain things and breaking, in fact, I could rather say learning and unlearning things from our mentors. So until we meet again, hope to see you.